Hi kids, and welcome to another project video. This week we are learning all about flowers. Today we are going to be making a flower experiment. But before we start with our experiment, let's talk a little bit about the parts of a flower. Yesterday we talked a little bit about all the things that a flower needs to grow. A flower needs soil, air, sunlight, and water in order to grow nice and big and healthy. Today we're going to talk about the parts of a flower that we kind of started talking about yesterday. So I'm going to draw a diagram of a flower with all of its parts. You are welcome to grab a sheet of paper and draw along with me, or you can just watch and listen. So flowers, they grow in the ground. So I'm going to draw a line right here. They grow in the ground. And I wonder if you remember what this is called, the dirt that flowers grow in. Do you remember? It is called the soil. Yesterday, we talked a little bit about soil. We made us some soil pudding that was super delicious. So flowers grow in the soil, and underneath the flower, there are roots that grow underneath the soil where we can't really see them. And if you take a look at roots, they kind of look like an upside down tree because they've got lots of little roots that branch out and spread through the soil. So these are the flower's roots. So I'm going to go ahead and write that. Roots, R-O-O-T-S, and in Spanish that's, I think you pronounce it raíces. Okay, and that's what grows underneath the soil. Roots are really important because they soak up water from the soil and they also soak up nutrients. So this is where flowers get their nutrients so that they can grow. Nutrients are kind of like food. So when we eat, we get nutrients to fuel our body. Plants get their nutrients from their roots. Okay, then when flowers start to grow, the first thing that you can see is their stem. So here's the stem of our flower. Let's go ahead and label it a stem, S-T-E-M. In Spanish, it's tallo, T-A-L-L-O. The stem has a really important job. The stem takes the water from the soil and it brings it up to the flower that we're going to draw in just a minute. So the water travels up the stem to the flower. On the stem, before we get to the flower part, on the stem, there's also something else. I wonder if you know what grows on the stem. That's right, leaves. So let's go ahead and draw some leaves and label them. So, leaves, it's L-E-A-V-E-S, leaves. And in Spanish, it's hoja, H-O-J-A-S, hojas. Okay, the leaves have an important job too. The leaves, they gather energy from the sun. So the leaves are out in the sun, they gather energy from the sun, which they bring into the stem and the flower. Okay, now the prettiest part of the flower is the flower itself that we see on the top of the stem. So we've got the center here, that's where the pollen is. The pollen is used to create new flowers when pollinators visit the flower, like bees and butterflies. And then flowers also have petals. petals can look all sorts of different ways. I'm going to go ahead and draw my petals blue. Flowers come in all different shapes and sizes, all different colors. There's so many different types of flowers. You can, if you're drawing along with me, you can draw your flower however you'd like. So the petals, spelled like this, petals, P-E-T-A-L-S, and in Spanish, I believe it's pronounced petalos. P-E with an accent, T-A-L-O-S. And then this whole thing together, the center of the flower with the petals, that is the flower, F-L-O-W-E-R. And in Spanish, it's flor, F-L-O-R. Okay, so all the different parts of the flower, the roots, stem, leaves, petals, and the flower itself all have a job. And you know, I didn't talk about the part of the petals, what the petals do. So remember we talked about how the pollinators visit the flower and they take the pollen from the middle of the flower. They spread it to the other flowers so that more flowers can grow. The petals are nice and beautiful and colorful to attract pollinators. Remember, pollinators are like bees, butterflies, hummingbirds, bats, things that take the pollen and pollinate in other places. So the beautiful leaves, they attract pollinators. So that's the job of the petals, but every single part of the flower has a very special job. So remember, we were talking about how we're going to do an experiment today. And the experiment we're doing today is about one part of the flower. It's about the stem. So remember I said that the stem has an important job to take water from the soil and bring it up to the leaves and the flower. So the stem is kind of like a road where the water travels from. A couple weeks ago, we planted pansies. And I was talking about how when you water a flower, you don't water the flower part or the leaf part. The part that's important to water is the soil. So you water the soil, and then the water that's in the soil, that travels up through the stem to feed the flower. In our experiment today, you are going to be using a real flower. So you will have a little daisy in your bag, and we're going to do our science experiment with this little daisy. I'm going to try and find a little cup for you to send home. If I don't, you can go ahead and find a little cup of your own that you might have in a kitchen. But basically, you just need a little container that's small enough for your flower to go inside. And you're going to fill it part of the way up with water. So you can see I have mine filled about halfway up. You're going to take your flower, and anytime you get a bouquet of flowers or a little flower that's cut like this, when you get it, it's important to go ahead and give it a fresh cut so that your flower will last longer. So before you put your flower into your water, you can go ahead and cut just a teeny bit off the stem so that it'll be blooming for longer before it wilts. So for our experiment today, you are going to take some food coloring, and you can find some food coloring in your materials bag, and you're going to put some food coloring into the water. So I'm going to put just a couple drops, 3 or so drops in my water, and you can see how it's spreading in the water. And then we are going to see how this food coloring travels up the stem and into the petals of our flower. So we are going to let this flower be for a little while, maybe a couple hours, and eventually we're going to see the food coloring from the water spread into the white petals of our flower. And the reason why it'll spread into our flower like that is because of the stem. The stem is doing its job. It's taking the water If this was a real plant growing outside, it would take the water from the soil, but since it's inside, it's going to take the water from the cup and it's going to suck that water up into the petals, and we'll be able to see how that happens because the petals are going to turn whatever color the water is. So it's pretty interesting. We can see how that stem is doing its job and giving the petals the water that it needs to keep it all nice and perky and beautiful and bloomed. I hope that you have fun doing our experiment today. And I am so excited to see your pictures on Seesaw. My flower hasn't been in the water for long enough to really show the results of our experiment yet, but pretty soon I'm hoping to see something happen in my white flower. Once your flower's been sitting for a while and it started to soak up some of that color, don't forget to take a picture and share it on Seesaw so that we can see everyone's experiment. All right, everyone, have fun doing your project today, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Goodbye, everyone.